Zion, Sinai, and the Saatán. Zion, Israel is lost. I will play the Saatán to get ahead of the curve and avoid a minyan of views, no disrespect meant. Zion, Israel is lost, is long past crossing the event horizon of the Black Fall, and not even a Davidic monarchy with chief rabbi, mercenary army, and migrant workforce can save it now. You can only delay but not reverse direction once crossing the event horizon. Fortunately, there was Sinai Israel before there ever was a Zion Israel. The Torah Teaching. This is a better world thanks to the Torah Teaching, but it would be the best world if we knew what the teaching of the Torah was, and furthermore, struggle with that knowledge as Israel to recreate the world as paradise. So then, the Torah is a teaching, not the teachings. So what is the teaching? Let's do the gematria. The sages 613 precepts gives Moses 10 commandments, gives Torah's one teaching. 613 is 6 plus 1 plus 3 is 10. 10 is 1 plus 0 is 1. The teaching of the Torah is the one and only Genesis 1:1a Alef, the residue. The only way to save Israel now is as Sinai Israel. That is, by saving the world starting with Israel-Palestine, return to the one and only holistic Torah and reject the abomination of the dualistic twin written and oral Torahs. That is, by rebooting humanity from the residue of the baby bang of paradise Kabbalogy. The role of the Saatán. What is the Saatán telling us? Detecting and exhibiting the contradiction, the impediment, and pointing in the direction of the way out. Satan's role is past political analysis of Jewish democracy. It is also past philosophical synthesis of Zion Israel. It is at the level of paradise Kabbalogy of Sinai Israel. The contradiction of Zion Israel. The contradiction of Zion Israel is Jewish democracy, and it can only be resolved by going back to basics. But we cannot return to basics because our understanding of things tells us that Ravism knows best what the Torah says, not anybody else. That is, on the one hand, we have Ravism, and on the other hand, we have the church-state separation. So we're at an impasse. The only solution is to reject Ravism and search for the way to bond church and state without causing a short circuit. The Holy Land. Any conflict in the Holy Land, by its very nature, makes it categorically different from any other. Sugarcoating or canceling bad news won't help get over the crises. We need to know who we are and act accordingly. The Israel-Palestine conflict is existential to diaspora Jewry as well, and by extension to the greater world. Israel is universal in the particular. There are wars and there is the war. Ukraine and Russia, or Taiwan and China, or other proxy conflicts are more of the same. But when it comes to the Holy Land, it's a different story altogether. All of a sudden, we're before a war to end in peace, or else to end all wars as the last world war. Israel and Palestine concern us all as children of the primordial Adam, taking the bull by the horns. With the onset of globalization, anybody's business is everybody's concern. Things have gone full circle and there is no longer any separate beginning or ending. The oldest teaching is suddenly the newest testament. Furthermore, with the onset of polarization due to oral Torah, tradition, and Messianism, the disjunctive seems to be complacency of the lukewarm, or else playing the Satan to heat things up onto awareness. That Satan helps us in our quest as Israel. Sinai and Zion. At this level, we'll employ the theoretical apparatus unfolded above to resolve the conflict of interest, which by all measures exemplifies universal traits in the particular case of study. By Sinai, we're referring to the one whole S of the Torah of Revelation, and by Zion, we're referring to the triune dismembered parts D, R, P, and not the triad parts DRP. That is, we're talking about the one whole humanity and Israel-Palestine triad nation states. Nationalism and Universalism. Zionism is nationalist, Sinaiism is universalist. The Holy Land is both. Unlike Ukraine, which is solely a nationalist struggle against Russia, the revelation of the Holy Book was entrusted to Moses so that the children of Israel could share in turn with the world. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot claim the benefits of Sinai chosenness, all the while be reaping the benefits of Zion supremacy without the responsibility of universality. Holistic Sinai and historic Zion. Sinai holistic is / Zion historical DRP. Sinai is the promised land of Moses. Zion is the conquered land of the kings. But what is the connecting residue linking the holistic with the historical? The holistic is beyond human understanding, all the while the historical can be fact-checked by history and archaeology. What are the residues of historical Zion and of holistic Sinai? For Zion is the western wall, and from there the second temple, and ultimately the first temple. For Sinai is rabbinic Judaism, from there the Torah scrolls, and ultimately the revelation at Mount Sinai to Moses. It's Zion, Jerusalem, and Sinai, Torah. Holistic and historical residues. Since Sinai is holistic, its residue cannot be in mass space-time, so it must be at the very point of origin. With Sinaiism we have Exodus. There's holistic Sinai and historic Zion with its conditionings. We need a theory to serve as crossroad and to interface with the twilight zone of things. Caveat: lack of proof of existence is not proof of inexistence. From residues we work our way backwards to deduce the existence of other previous items. Take the case of the scrolls. There must have been previous scrolls written in archaic Paleo-Hebrew script and not written in the Kataf Ashuri script square of today. Same with the destruction of the second temple. From there we can deduce the existence of the first temple, though there's scant evidence of its existence, at least as described in the books of Samuel and Kings. The same with the residue left behind by King David and his son King Solomon. The legacy is that previously there was King Saul, and before the monarchy there were the judges, and after King Solomon came King Rehoboam, and so on. Since there were kings up to Roman times, the search can be made backwards following the residues left by previous rulers. All this regarding Zion of Jerusalem. But what about Sinai, of the revelation in the wilderness? How to explain the foundations of Sinaiism? The how, while necessary, is not sufficient without the why. Source: Israel, field: Greece, and the West. Why don't we use arguments stemming from the Enlightenment period? For the same reason that we don't use Greek reasoning, because Enlightenment is derived from Greece, which in turn ultimately derived from Israel of the Mosaic 101 teaching. The West is heir to Israel as church and to Greece as state. Anachronism of knowledge. Care must be made to avoid seeing the Torah teaching as religion. Knowledge serves as parameter of humanity's trajectory. The Torah was the knowledge of their times. In our terminology, it was the science of the archaic period. It is an error to view archaic knowledge as today's religion. To them, theistic understanding is equivalent to today's scientific technological understanding of things. The knowledge of the archaic was what today we call religion, that of Greek antiquity was philosophy, and that of Western modernity is science. But it's all sought secret knowledge S / Derash, discover religion D, Remes, reflect philosophy R, Peshat, plain science P. Double standards. What is chosenness? It is the unique as the exceptional, specific representing the universal. What is supremacy? It is the best of the best. There's white supremacy and there's Jewish chosenness. These two traits of supremacy and chosenness seem to converge in the ongoing conflict in the Middle East of Israel-Palestine. This is not a place for political analysis. Our approach is more like searching for the standard model of nations. To that end, we'll delve into this conflict as the field to resolve the human predicament in the Holy Land. White supremacy and Jewish chosenness. A short dialogue on European Jewish exceptionalism. R. White supremacy and Jewish chosenness as best of both worlds. L. Is your statement positive about Jewry? We have inherited these prejudices against us, or a negative one, that we exhibit these ways of thinking? R. Yours is a distinction which doesn't make a difference. L. Come again. How come? Chosen for what? What is holding it back to serve and to lead? R. What's holding it back is mono/dualism of the oral Torah tradition of sageism and messianism. Come again? R. Because the point origin was missed by the sages, not missing. Then they tried to make up for it by substitution. On the one hand, the oral Torah of sageism for the Torah of revelation, and on the other hand, the Messiah for Moses. L. You're saying that Judaism, after 2,000 years of diaspora, is characterized by white supremacy and Jewish chosenness? Or white supremacy is false and prejudice. What is left is Jewish chosenness. Chosen for or to do what? That is the question at issue, which we will now trace with a house painter's brush. Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jewry. Since diaspora, Sephardi and Ashkenazi Jewry have to take ownership of the roots regarding European white supremacy and rabbinic Judaism chosenness. Sephardi, and perhaps others as well, but not so accentuated as coming from remote Spain, Portugal, and France, and others obliquely. Let's take one first along the timeline. Together it's an implosive cocktail. Let's start with Jewish chosenness. But first, let's clarify that it's rabbinic Judaism with this important stipulation. The baby bang was the revelation of the Torah to Moses at Mount Sinai. This must have happened holistically because there is no physical evidence left behind DRP. Then this broke up non-triadically as inspiration prophets D, separate from enlightenment writings R, separate from erudition Talmud P. This is an ongoing research, but what is clear is that it unfolded as the oral Torah tradition and eventually triggered the Messiah movement. This rabbinic Judaism, along with Hellenism within a European context, ended becoming X-ism. Now to the main point of interest of European supremacy. It must be noted that the basis of this belief comes primarily from Western Europe, especially in what concerns us here of the colonial powers of Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, France, and various other nations as well. But in general, it's Western Europe the mainstay of culture in post-classical times. Greece and Israel. Ashkenazi is a mixture of Eastern European and diaspora Jewish. The periodization roughly goes as Greek Hellenization, followed by Roman law and Hellenization, and then Western colonization, imprinting the worldview with Hellenization, Roman law, and science. The cultural series goes as Greece first-degree Hellenization, Rome second-degree Hellenization, and the West third-degree Hellenization. Specifically, X-ism in Rome is second-degree Hellenization plus second-degree Israelization. Before Greece, the conquerors' belief was that gods were local, tied to a people and a land. With Greece, things changed by introducing the non-local or universal worldview. Previous conquerors limited themselves to collecting tribute, conscription, and alliances. Things changed with Greek Hellenization. Now X-ism became universal, having non-local validity. The West. The West consists of Hellenization, X-ation, and industrialization. Zionism is an Ashkenazi construct of the East European West in post-colonial times. Eastern Europe started late in colonization, long after Western Europe was packing up and moving on. The Ashkenazi Jew is a mixture of Eastern European and diaspora Jewry. Zionism combines traits from both components as reclaiming ancestral land alongside the belief of colonization of savages and teaching them table manners. Arabism occurs parallel to its counterpart in Europe. Now both meet at Palestine. This produced philo-Arabism and Anti-Semitism. Sinaiism and Zionism. Without Sinai, there is no Israel and no Zion. But there can be Israel without Zion. Without Zion, the city of David, and without the Temple of Solomon, there's still Israel of Sinai. It takes more than a passing moment to get the point across. The message won't be understood without the background. To that end, let's step back from the event horizon. Israel needs pure Zionism as much as it needs a shot in the head. Sinaiism can smooth the edge of Zionism from a losing to a winning narrative by holistically leading the whole world, but not just internally as religion, but outwardly as paradise Kabbalogy. There is no historical Israel outside of Zionism. It is an Ashkenazi construct made out of East European supremacy and Judean chosenness. Colonialism came from Western Europe, Spain, Portugal, UK, France, and Holland. The idea permeating the continent was the white man's burden of civilizing the savages by conquest. Israel is not Jewish democracy. What is Jewish? Race, people, religion, culture, civilization, creation. What is democracy? Athens, Greece, Enlightenment period, American Revolution, French Revolution, modernity. Israel as Jewish democracy reminds one of gloom and doom, scare tactics that there is no salvation outside of Zionism. The problem is that right now, as things stand, it isn't autonomous. It's dependent on the whim of the United States and more broadly on the West. But only if it's in their national interest does it sit on the table. Otherwise, it's on the menu. Sinaiism. Israel are who struggle with Yod He Vav He and prevail. Zionism are Jewish people are children of Israel, irrespective. Sinai is universal/particular Zion DRP. Fighting anti-Semitism by Israelism. Israel needs to listen, serve, and lead and stop revising, whining, and dealing in double negatives such as fighting anti-Semitism. This is how to achieve it. The problem with Zionism is that it's a losing discourse before the world scenario. Einstein warned us against persistent trial and error insanity. Don't repeat it if it isn't working. It's time for creative thinking if you want to make real and lasting changes. Stop cutting corners and instead go back to home base of the Constitution by defining what Israel is and what it is not. Israel is not Jewish democracy. After 76 years of winning wars and losing peace, that much should be clear. Israel is Israelist democracy, which is not the same thing. Model C. Let's start by unfolding Paradise Model C of Creator is/becomes, Creation DRP with Civilization D, Constitution R, Culture P. Israel is beyond the civilization, constitution, and culture levels, needing rebooting from near creation itself. Only restarting from the midpoint of the 53I triad state, Constitution R, can the world lead by Israel-Palestine can rescue it now. The 53I state. The triune state of enlightenment consists of first power legislative, second power executive, and third power judicial. The triad state of paradise Kabbalogy would include the fourth power in media and the fifth power university as representing the ages of information and of knowledge. That is, the fourth power media reporters and the fifth power university academics, students, and staff would designate the third power judicial judges. Recall in all this that the individual S/person DRP consists of beliefs D, values R, interests P. This would unfold as 3 votes per person for democracy instead of 1 vote per person under duocracy. Lastly, humans have all rights from birth, including infant suffrage, under parental tutelage. All this is covered in the video series 53I, Winning and Losing Narrative. Please watch the video, quote, 53I, Israel-Palestine, 5-power triad state, 3 votes per person, infant suffrage for background. Fatigue is setting in, but the problem isn't going away by turning off the newsfeed. Diplomacy is better than war, but it requires a winning narrative to succeed in achieving a peace settlement between Israel and Palestine. Bibi just isn't cutting it with the diaspora Jewry in America and elsewhere outside of some in Haaretz, Israel. Israelist and Jewish. Israelist democracy, yes. Jewish democracy, no. Jewish parochialism and Israelist Universalism. In any case, the request is to explain the proposal for Israel as Israelist democracy and avoid using Jewish democracy, so as to uphold the church-state separation. The trick is getting around Jewish and going to the core of Judaism as Israelism. Judaism is just one more religion, whereas Israelism is the universal principle of knowledge of humanity. Saviorism is a triune, not a triad. Saviorism is monodualism and not unitriadism of paradise Kabbalogy. That is, it is an abomination as Saviorism is sources slash fields Hebrew D, Greek R, heathen P. The end of Judaism and of Israelism. I attended a webinar entitled, quote, The End of Judaism, Reflections from Our Present. It is a play with words with, on the one hand, the end in time, and on the other hand, the end in purpose. Parallel to this is also the beginning of the beginning, as in Spanish, el principio del principio, that is, the beginning slash principio as in time and the principal principio as in reason. That said, what is the end of Israel? What is the beginning of Israel? The end and the beginning of Israel are both in the Torah. Teach the teaching, pass it on, yes, but first learn it right. Beginning of Israel is slash end of Israel DRP. Principle is slash beginning DNRNP. Common sense. By the way, what is common sense? We all know what common sense is, yet no one knows what it is. Common sense is that the one whole is and becomes triad slash triad part DRP. Namely, paradise Kabbalogy is common sense. Today's idolatry. What was wrong with idol worship and why was it wrong? It wasn't that the Elohim, God's powers, didn't exist. Their names states that they were Elohim, God's powers. Actually, in the Ten Commandments, it says not to have other Elohim powers before the creator power of powers, Yod Heh Elohim, but not because they were powerless. Just don't choose the triune D, R, and P parts separately and not derived from S. The God Elohim powers to worship as S is by putting the parts in a triad, DRP. You do more harm than good to yourselves by breaking things even more. Short-term gain for long-term loss. Today's idolatry is the joy of choosing futile play with toys over creative chat with the Creator. Without uni/triadism of revelation of the Torah, you will fall for mono/dualism of the oral Torah, of sageism, and of messianism. This effectively blocks access to the point origin of the Torah of paradise Kabbalogy. About the author. Ricardo Turullols-Bonilla studied physics at UT Austin, mathematical physics at Imperial College London, graduate philosophy at UNAM, Mexico City, MBA at Iberoamericana, Mexico City, and Kabbalogy by studying the Torah on his own in Austin. This last one proves that there's no need for tutelage to the Torah, which is always open to the heart. Zapatero a tus zapatos. His books are found at Amazon and his videos at YouTube, plus podcasts elsewhere. Amazon, YouTube, and podcasts. Title, Friends of Dialogue. Subtitle, The Quest of Keeping the Heart, A Philosophy of Practice, 2005. Title, Dialogue of Friends. Subtitle, Making Sense of the Human Spirit, A Practice of Philosophy, 2005. Title, Triads. Subtitle, The Pre-Socratic Origins of Dialogical Science, 2012. Title, Pardeism. Subtitle, Human Science 101, 2016. Title, The Principle of World Caring. Subtitle, Peace by Wholeness, 2019. Title, Saving Creation, The Baby Bang of Paradise Civilization, 2022. Title, The Sweet Spot. Subtitle, On the Obvious, All Revealing Yet Hiding in Plain View, 2023. Videos at the website on YouTube with a handle, books likewise at Amazon with a handle. Yours truly, Ricardo, and God bless.